Happy 2021. Welcome to another episode of Habeas Humor. This is actually our second show in 2021, but it's the first one since Trump has been out of the White House. So I can now truly say Happy 2021. Did you also watch Biden's inauguration live? And if so, did you also have butterflies as he was being sworn in? I was so happy and excited, yet also anxious because, what if something happens to fuck it all up before he can legally become the president? And then once he was finished taking the oath, I literally went, woo! I was in the car. I wasn't driving, but I was just so overcome with relief and exhilaration, and that feeling continues. Trump is gone from the White House, hopefully permanently, and hopefully none of his family members will ever be occupying the White House again. The dead of winter has never felt so bright and cheerful. Even the fact that the new president is another elderly white man in a long and nearly unbroken line of those can't bring me down right now. And wasn't Lady Gaga just fabulous? It was great that Lady Gaga was chosen to sing the national anthem. I think she works very well as an icon of today's America. Her outfit was lovely, very in keeping with her signature dramatic style. Maybe just a slight bit Hunger Gamesy for my personal taste, but that's just my own opinion, and I guess opinions are like assholes, so. Speaking of running for your life, Donald Trump might be doing exactly that pretty soon. For more, let's go to the legal news.
Giving our views on the legal news.
Donald Trump is in the midst of quite a legal kerfuffle. Even though his term as president has ended, impeachment proceedings are ongoing with regard to the charge of inciting an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. The articles have been delivered from the House of Representatives to the Senate, and a trial is scheduled for February. The ultimate result is in the hands of the senators who will serve as the jurors in the trial. In addition to the question of guilt or innocence, there will be lawyers arguing on both sides about legal questions such as whether it is even constitutional to have an impeachment trial for a president who has already left office. If you want to read up more on those legal issues, there are links in the show notes. There's not much point in my going into it since it doesn't really matter what I think. It matters what the U.S. senators think and what the presiding judge thinks, probably Chief Justice John Roberts, although even that is being debated. Should there be a court that determines it has jurisdiction to review the case on appeal, then it will matter what those judges think. Because if Trump is convicted, I'm sure he will try to appeal it to federal court. As for whether the Senate will convict Trump, I would not bet a nickel on it either way. The Senate can, if they choose, vote to convict Trump and to bar him from holding any federal office in the future, which is really the only consequence available at this time, since the issue of removal from office is moot. He's already gone, thank goodness, but impeachment truly is the least of Donald Trump's legal problems right now. He is facing the likelihood of real criminal charges from the federal government and from at least a couple of states. Real criminal charges that could land him in real prison. Please, please, please. So Donald Trump really needs a good criminal lawyer right now, several in fact, and that will be a problem for him. If you are a longtime fan of habeas humor, then you remember this topic coming up previously. And you know already that Donald Trump has a troubled history with his lawyers. For one thing, he pretty much never pays them. That fact is pretty well known, actually, since it was in the news last week when Trump predictably announced that he was refusing to pay for Rudy Giuliani's legal work. And not for any reason that makes any actual sense. Trump, as usual, just made up some ridiculous bullshit. You fired Rudy. Your lawyering is no good, and I'm not paying your bills. And it's because you're no good. It's definitely not because I'm a con man whose veneer of wealth is a total sham and I'm broke. So there's that, the not paying. And lawyers really do like to get paid. Trust me, they virtually insist on it. Unless the work is pro bono. And if you look up the English translation of pro bono, you will see why it could never apply to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is no bono. In fact, I think Stormy Daniels pretty much said that as well, confirmed that about him. JK. But seriously though, Donald Trump is notoriously bad at receiving advice from people who might know better about things. That makes it tough for a lawyer to have a productive attorney-client relationship with him and to represent him with good results. Like, for instance, when you have to keep telling your client to stop fucking tweeting to the world about all the details of the case. At least that's not a problem anymore, eh? Hey, Donald, oh, be sure not to tweet about this case. Oh, wait, hey, you can't. What was that? Oh, sure, honey, you go right ahead and Snapchat all you want. That's fine. Speaking of being the, client from hell, Trump seems to have a knack for getting his lawyers into legal trouble of their own, doesn't he? I mean, maybe that isn't Trump's own fault. Maybe it's just the type of lawyer he tends to choose. They so often go astray until it leads to a very public downfall. Cohen, Manafort, Dershowitz, the list goes on. In fact, we'll talk about another one in a little bit. Spoiler, Giuliani. But my point here is the possibility of prison has to be a dissuader for a lot of potential attorneys who might consider working for Donald Trump. They weigh the pros and the cons. Well, yeah, sure, he won't pay me, but there's the free publicity. I could become famous. Yeah, right, famous for going to jail. Just say no is my motto when it comes to working for the Trumps. Not that they've asked. Oh, well, Donald, there's always the public defender. Before I get myself in too deep, this would be a good time for me to make very clear that as of right now, Donald Trump has not been charged with anything. And he is not being prosecuted for any crime. And should he be prosecuted, he is deemed innocent until proven guilty. Don't sue me. I have no money anyway. And I am only saying stuff that I have read in the news. You know, the stuff that lots of people are saying. So there is nothing official yet, but on the federal level, Donald Trump was identified in Michael Cohen's case as a person who conspired with Cohen to make illegal campaign contributions that went to pay adult film star Stormy Daniels to prevent her from revealing that she had sex with Donald Trump sometime not too long before the 2016 presidential election, and also to prevent her from revealing that Trump's penis looks like a toadstool from Super Mario Brothers. So that conspiracy happened, and Cohen was convicted for it, and there seems to be no legal reason on earth why Trump should not also be convicted for the same conspiracy. And hopefully that criminal case will be coming down the pike. Then there's the small matter of collusion. No doubt you have read cover to cover the report from the investigation by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. You haven't? Just kidding, me neither. I leave the smart stuff to AOC. But as you do know, if you have listened to the podcasts about the Mueller report like I have, there is strong evidence that Donald Trump obstructed justice by, lying to Mueller, dissuading witnesses from cooperating with the investigation, and, trying to fire Mueller while covering up that he was trying to fire Mueller. Some of the pardons Donald Trump has granted could also be construed as attempts to obstruct justice. Manafort, Flynn, Stone, Papadopoulos, the list goes on. Really nothing at all funny about that, aside from how Trump would look in an orange prison jumpsuit that matches his face. Oh, please, I hope we will get to see that. Also, Trump can and hopefully will be prosecuted for the events that gave rise to his first impeachment, namely the crime of bribery for allegedly threatening to withhold military aid to Ukraine unless their president announced a corruption investigation of Joe Biden. Trump was not convicted in the first impeachment trial because the corrupt Republican shitheels in the Senate refused to seriously entertain the charges. But that does not give Trump immunity from actual criminal prosecution by the Department of Justice. And y'all, we are barely past the tip of the iceberg. Those are just the most obvious federal offenses. The New York State Attorney General has been investigating Donald Trump and the Trump Organization at least since Michael Cohen gave testimony to Congress in early 2019 when he testified that Donald Trump has inflated the worth of his assets in financial documents. So in March of 2019, the New York Attorney General subpoenaed records from Deutsche Bank and Investors Bank in order to find out if the Trump Organization lied about their assets in order to get bank loans to finance various Trump Organization projects, including their failed attempt to buy the Buffalo Bills. Not only did the New York Attorney General's office pull the records from the banks, they also brought in Eric Trump to give a deposition. A deposition, in case you don't know, is recorded testimony given under penalty of perjury. Seems like the AG went for the weakest link there, which was smart. And if evidence of wrongdoing is found, the Trump Organization and the people in it could face both civil and criminal penalties. Then there are the income taxes, you know, the ones that Trump totally was going to release to the public, but just never, ever did. In late 2020, the New York Times managed to obtain data from various Trump tax returns over the last 2 decades, and they reported that Donald Trump reduced the income taxes owed by his company in part by writing off $26 million in quote-unquote consulting fees paid to business consultants. You'll be shocked, but one of the consultants was none other than Donald Trump's daughter, Ivanka, to the tune of about $750,000. Now, to be clear, there might be nothing illegal about that per se. Waste of money for sure, but not illegal. Unless it was a scheme to dodge tax liability. Both the New York Attorney General and the Manhattan District Attorney have been investigating this possible tax fraud since the fall of 2020. And you may have been wondering, what about the Internal Revenue Service? Have they also been investigating? Well, the IRS is an agency of the executive branch, which means they were directly under the authority of Donald Trump while he was the president. Not that this should matter at all, as far as investigating irregularities in Trump's federal tax returns. I mean, unless Trump was somehow inclined towards obstructing investigations. He doesn't do that. So I'm sure there was no problem. One more federal investigation that hopefully will turn into a criminal case against Donald Trump is concerning inaugural fundraising. The Wall Street Journal reported in December of 2018 that federal prosecutors in New York were looking at the records of Trump's 2017 inaugural committee, which had raised a record-breaking amount of $107 million. Might any of that money possibly have been misspent? Is there any chance, for instance, that donors gave money directly in exchange for access to the administration? Could the granting of cabinet seats to multi-million-dollar donors such as Betsy DeVos possibly indicate a tendency to grant political favors in exchange for monetary bribes? Oh, phooey and pshaw. I'm sure there's nothing to that. And yet, so many individuals involved with the Trump campaign have turned out to be guilty of committing crimes. There was Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen, and in October of 2019, Lev Parnas and Ruby Freeman. They were arrested and charged with campaign finance violations. Parnas and Freeman, incidentally, were assisting Rudy Giuliani with digging up dirt on Joe Biden in Ukraine. And this could spell trouble for Giuliani himself, since the newspapers report that federal prosecutors have been examining Giuliani's own financial dealings as well. Giuliani, of course, denies any wrongdoing, and in an interview with New York Magazine, he said, "If they're investigating me, they're assholes. They're absolutely assholes if they're investigating me." Totally what an innocent person would say. And we will be circling back around to Law and Order man Rudy Giuliani, as I will have some more to say about him when we get to the post-election offenses, alleged offenses. But first, some more juicy goss from New York. For more than 2 years, the Manhattan District Attorney has been investigating Donald Trump and the Trump Organization for possible illegal activities that include paying hush money in 2016 to two women to keep them quiet about sexual relationships with Donald Trump. One of them presumably is Stormy Daniels. The other one I don't know. I don't think the name is public. Additionally, the New York DA reports that they have been investigating allegations of bank fraud and insurance fraud. Of course, they have to fight to get access to records. When the DA demanded production of Trump's tax returns, Trump naturally filed an objection, and the resulting litigation eventually was heard in the United States Supreme Court. Trump's lawyers argued that Trump was immune from having his tax returns investigated because he was the president. And the court said, no, you're not immune. So it is very possible that Trump will be charged by New York State with various violations of the laws of New York. And that is extra delicious because presidential pardon power does not extend to state crimes. Presidential pardons are only for federal crimes. A person who has been convicted by a state can only be pardoned by that state's governor. In the case of New York, the governor is Democrat Andrew Cuomo, and I do not think it is likely he will pardon Donald Trump for anything. And if he does, then may he burn in hell if there is one, and that goes for all the other governors. And you too, President Biden, just in case you should get any wacky ideas. Don't go soft now. We know from the Clarence Thomas hearings that you can be a callous asshole, so just be as uncompassionate to Trump as you were to Anita Hill. By the way, Anita Hill is not a criminal. I want to be very clear about that. Don't sue me, Anita. But speaking of pardons, the question has been asked many times. Could Trump have pardoned himself while he was still the president? That seems to be a moot question now, since Trump apparently did not attempt to pardon himself. If he had, there would be the legal question of whether the pardon is valid. The United States Constitution grants the president the power to pardon federal crimes, but does that include a self-pardon? This has never been ruled on in our court system. There is a split of opinion between legal scholars, and I am most persuaded by those who say no. The historical documentation suggests that a presidential self-pardon should not be valid because it is just so very at odds with the whole purpose. A pardon, according to former Chief Justice John Marshall, is an act of grace. According to Alexander Hamilton, it is the tempering of justice with mercy. Contrast that with the idea of a president pardoning himself in order to just completely escape consequences for his own crimes and abuses of power that would neither be grace nor mercy. That's pure corruption. So it just does not seem that we should read the U.S. Constitution as allowing the president to pardon the president. What Trump also could have tried, but apparently did not, was to preemptively pardon his children for any federal crimes that little Donald, little Eric, little Ivanka, and little Jared could be charged with. That would have been more likely to stick, but again, it does not appear that Donald Trump tried to do that, and I believe it is because it would put the Trumps in a bind. It would be solid evidence that Donald Trump and his little gang of bandits knew they were breaking the law. Otherwise, what's to pardon? Remember, this state of mind issue came up during the Russia investigation. The Trumps professed their innocence and their ignorance. They were all like, "Oh, we didn't do anything illegal when we tried to trade with Russians for dirt on Hillary Clinton. And even if we did, we had no idea it was against the law." But then try denying that you had any idea you might have been committing a crime, out of one side of your mouth, and then pardoning yourself for the same crime out of the other side of your mouth. Trump has done some egregious double talk these last few years, but that is a whole other level, and I don't think any court would buy it. And it's probably not even worth trying, especially since there might be charges coming for violations of state laws, which again are completely out of the scope of presidential pardon power. And speaking of state law violations, I am so excited to now get to my favorite one of those, which is out of Georgia. I love this one because there are tapes. Oh lordy, there are tapes. On Saturday, January 2nd, Donald Trump and some of his lawyers had a recorded phone conversation with the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. During that phone conversation, Trump tried to convince, persuade, threaten, bully Raffensperger into changing the result of the Georgia presidential election by quote-unquote finding more votes for Trump. The backstory of this phone call is that Trump filed a court action to challenge the results of the election in Georgia, which, as you know, came out for Biden. Trump advanced a bunch of theories about how the election was stolen, and it's based on a bunch of stuff coming straight from 4chan and Q Anon. Allegations that people stuffed the ballot boxes with votes for Biden, claims that voters were turned away from the polls and they were definitely going to vote for Trump, claims that ballots were shredded and were never counted and they were definitely all votes for Trump. All of this stuff, by the way, was investigated by the federal government and the Georgia government, and there was no evidence found for any of it. Trump, therefore, was losing his challenge in court, so he was just directly appealing to the Georgia Secretary of State to allow Trump's own people to get a hold of the records, like the actual ballots and all. And this is why Trump and his lawyers got on the phone with the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and also the Secretary of State's General Counsel, Ryan Germany. And for about an hour, Trump and his lawyers did their best finagling. And spoiler alert, it did not work. Didn't work on Raffensperger, who, by the way, is a Republican, very much a Republican. So is the general counsel, who was also on the phone, Ryan Germany. Ryan Germany was like the leader of his law school's Federalist Society and stuff. He has been entrenched in the Republican administration of Georgia for several years. I seriously doubt that anyone who was on any end of that phone call had actually wanted Biden to win. The thing is, though, Trump said stuff during this phone call that could very well constitute a crime under several laws, including Georgia Code Section 21-2-604, which prohibits criminal solicitation to commit election fraud. Let's get to the recording of this phone call because it is just off the damn rails.
If we could just go over some of the numbers, I think it's pretty clear that we won. We won very substantially, Georgia. You even see it by rally size, frankly. We'd be getting 25,000, 30,000 people a rally. And
starting off strong, Trump makes the argument from rally size. I had, so he says, thousands of idiots show up to see me in person before the election, so how could I have lost Georgia? And that's clearly what happened based on the rally size. So how's about you just say you were wrong and recertify this election for Trump? Sadly, that argument didn't get the reaction Trump had hoped for, so he kept going.
We had at least 18,000, that's on tape. We had them counted very painstakingly. 18,000 voters having to do with Ruby Freeman. She's a vote scammer, a professional vote scammer. And
professional vote scammer, you say? Tell me more. I want to know all about this career path. I am currently unemployed, as you know.
We're so far ahead of these numbers. Even the phony ballots of Ruby Freeman, known scammer. You know the internet? You know what was trending on the internet? Where's Ruby? Because they thought she'd be in jail. Where's Ruby? It's crazy. It's crazy. That was the minimum number is 18,000 for Ruby, but they think it's probably about 56,000. But the minimum number is 18,000 on the Ruby Freeman night, where she ran back in there when everybody was gone and stuffed. She stuffed the ballot boxes. Let's face it, Brad. I mean, they did it in slow motion replay, magnified, right? She stuffed the ballot boxes. They were stuffed like nobody's ever seen them stuffed before.
Like no one has ever seen them stuffed before? How much has anyone seen them stuffed before? If you know, write in and tell me, please. So to recap, Trump is saying here that someone named Ruby Freeman, whom he says is a famous professional vote scammer and balloteer, he uses that word elsewhere in the phone call, balloteer. I was like, what is a balloteer? So I looked it up, and it's not a real thing. I mean, it is a word, but it just means someone who casts a ballot. So congratulations. If you voted, and you better have, you're a balloteer. Balloteers! All for one and one for all. Trump goes on and on about this Ruby Freeman, known political operative, known balloteer. According to Trump, it was all the internet was talking about at the beginning of January. The whole internet asking, where's Ruby? Hashtag, where's Ruby? Trump says that Ruby infiltrated the State Farm Arena in Georgia, where I guess they were voting and or counting votes. And Ruby was able to create a diversion to get everyone out of the place so that she could be alone with the voting machines and all the ballots. And then on camera, Trump claims, because this Ruby is real good but not quite good enough to cover up the webcam, the video shows that Ruby stuffs the ballot boxes. Trump says he has footage, magnified and in slow motion, of Ruby Freeman stuffing Biden votes into the machines. Trump says it might be 18,000 or 56,000 or some number in between, give or take a few thousand, but it's on the video in slow motion, magnified. Apparently neither slow nor magnified enough to tell whether it's 18,000 or 56,000, but it's some number, he says, that's definitely more than 11,000 and whatever, which is the number that Trump lost the state of Georgia by. 11,779 to be exact, which is why Trump says over and over again to the Georgia Secretary of State, just find me 11,780 votes. I just need 11,780 votes. And Trump, in case you hadn't guessed it, is so full of shit about this. He knows. There's nothing to this Ruby Freeman story. Yet he repeats over and over on this phone call that just Ruby Freeman gets him enough votes to win the election, which would be true if something actually happened. But it didn't. Think about it. If someone was caught on video cheating the vote machines, they would be in jail right now. The Department of Justice would be prosecuting them, and Trump's court challenge of the Georgia election results would come out much differently. What in fact happened was that good old Rudy Giuliani took the video from the State Farm Arena and then heavily edited it to try and make it look like this ballot stuffing took place. Very similar, actually, to the incident several years ago when someone had tried to make it look like Planned Parenthood was illicitly selling baby parts and they just chopped up the video, manipulated it. Giuliani did the same sort of thing with the video from the State Farm Arena ballots. He fudged the video, he presented it to Georgia legislators to try and convince them that voter fraud had taken place, and he went on TV with Sean Hannity to talk about it.
Here's what's fascinating.
4 or 5 days.
I'm watching all of this very close. I watched Georgia today very closely, this video. Then we got the case
Georgia
in Wisconsin, and then we got the case in Nevada. And then if the Supreme Court ever takes the constitutional arguments of Pennsylvania, we have a real constitutional shot, in my opinion. You go wherever you.
Oh, we have a real good shot. I mean, today's video was really explosive, because it puts the lie to the fact there's no evidence. First of all, there are about 5,000 affidavits now, so there's plenty of evidence. We've presented over the last 4 days about 100 witnesses. And today, in addition to very many compelling witnesses showing about 100,000 or more illegal ballots in the state of Georgia, we presented 4 videotapes from 4 security cameras showing the Democrats throwing the Republicans out, claiming there was a water main break, which is a lie. Once the Republicans left, they took ballots out from under a table where they had it hidden, looked like thousands and thousands of ballots, and while the Republicans weren't there all night, counted the ballots. That's on tape. I want you to watch it. It proves what crooks they are, what thieves they are. It proves it. It proves everything we've been saying and everything the president has been saying. See that? That happens to be on tape. That was going on in 6 other places. That was going on in Pennsylvania. It was going on in Pittsburgh. It was going on in Wisconsin. It was going on in Michigan, in Detroit, Michigan. It's going on in Phoenix, Arizona.
You know,
and it's
if
going
you look
on big time in Atlanta, Georgia.
If you look
can't argue with that, Sean.
Sorry.
So what about that? Well, when investigators went back and looked at all the footage unedited, they found nothing out of order. And during the phone call between Trump and the Georgia Secretary of State, you'll hear the Secretary of State call this out, saying that Giuliani manipulated the video, and you won't hear Trump denying that. Trump just keeps harping on about Ruby Freeman over and over again, basically trying to wield the power of suggestion. This was fraud. This was fraud. If I say it enough times, you'll believe that there is some fire to go with this smoke that I'm blowing out my ass.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about the State Farm video, and I think it's extremely unfortunate that Rudy Giuliani or his people, they sliced and diced that video and took it out of context. So the next day we brought in WSB TV and we let them see the full run of tape. And what you'll see, the events that transpired are nowhere near what was projected by.
And there you have it. Rudy Giuliani doctored the video, made it look like this Ruby Freeman messed with the voting machines. The machines, incidentally, are from a company called Dominion. Rudy Giuliani has been making allegations every which way about Dominion and their voting machines. He called the machines crooked, said they were used to steal the election. He said that Dominion is really a Venezuelan company and their voting machine software was originally created to help former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez fix elections. None of this is true. Dominion is actually Canadian. And surprise, surprise, Dominion has sued Giuliani for defamation, as they should. And if Giuliani can go to jail for this, he should. He has done horrible, dishonest things, manipulating evidence, making false statements. These things are about the most low-down, unethical, unprofessional things that a lawyer can do. It's a disgrace. And for Giuliani in particular, it casts a shadow of doubt over his whole career. Funny story. Giuliani made his name prosecuting mobsters in New York, most famously Tony Salerno. Giuliani is given credit for pretty much bringing down the whole New York mafia. And guess what his primary evidence there was? Recordings. What are we to think of that now? What are people he put in prison going to think of that now? Giuliani needs to be stripped of his law license and hopefully prosecuted. He has thoroughly disgraced himself and the legal profession, and that's without even talking about Borat. It does not, however, appear that Rudy Giuliani participated in this phone call with the Georgia Secretary of State, but Trump had other lawyers there representing him.
I will tell you, I've seen the tape, the full tape. So has Alex. We've watched it. And what we saw and what we've confirmed in the timing is that they made everybody leave. We have sworn affidavits saying that. And then they began to process ballots. And our estimate is that there were roughly 18,000 ballots. We don't know that. If you know that.
There was 18,000 ballots, but they used each one 3 times.
Well,
So
I
it's
don't
a-
know about that, but I
Yeah,
know.
well,
that
I do
know.
because we had ours magnified out.
That was attorney Cleta Mitchell, at least it was at first until Trump interrupted and talked over her. Trump hired Mitchell apparently to the surprise of her law firm, Foley and Lardner, where she was a partner until she resigned 3 days after this call. When this recording went public, the firm was really, really surprised that Cleta Mitchell was involved, or at least they pretended to be surprised. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they just never thought that anyone would ever know that this happened. Or maybe they were like, "What the hell were you thinking, Cleta? You worked for Trump? Don't you know he never pays his lawyer bills? What's wrong with you?" Anyway, Cleta Mitchell had to cut all of her ties with the law firm of Foley and Lardner, and her profile isn't even on their website anymore. And the law firm issued a statement saying that they are concerned by Mitchell's participation in the call between Trump and the Georgia Secretary of State, since, it may have violated state and federal laws. The firm says that they have a policy not to represent any party in connection with matters related to elections. Cleta Mitchell herself sent an email to her clients and friends saying that she left the firm because of what she called a massive pressure campaign mounted by leftist groups via social media and other means against her. But she said she is not giving up her efforts regarding election integrity. So look for more from her, I guess. Hope Trump pays you, Cleta, in money. Anyway, let's listen to more of the call because we haven't even gotten to the best stuff yet.
This is Ryan, Germany. We had our law enforcement officers talk to everyone who was there after that event came to light. The GBI was with them as well as FBI agents.
Well, there's no way they could. Then they're incompetent. They're either dishonest or incompetent. Okay, there's only two answers: dishonesty or incompetence. There's just no way. Look, there's no way.
That was Ryan Germany, the first voice. Again, he is the general counsel for the Georgia Secretary of State. He was describing the investigation into the supposed ballot stuffing scandal. And then right before Trump comes back on, you can faintly hear Cleta Mitchell ask, "Well, what did they find?" And Trump completely doesn't hear that because he doesn't listen to women.
There's no way I lost Georgia. There's no way. We won by hundreds of thousands of votes. I'm just going by small numbers. When you add them up, they're many times the 11,000. But I won that state by hundreds of thousands of votes. Now, do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines. That Dominion is really moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Do you know anything about that? Because that's illegal.
This is Ryan, Germany. No, Dominion has not moved any machinery out of Fulton County. We're having
but have they moved? Have they moved the inner parts of the machines and replaced them with other parts?
No.
You sure, Ryan?
I'm sure, Mr. President.
Trump says that not only is there no way he lost in Georgia, he must have won it by hundreds of thousands of votes. And then he asks whether Dominion tampered with their own voting machines. Did they take out the inside parts and put in other parts on the inside parts? And the attorney just says, no, Mr. President, we investigated it and conclusively found it is bullshit. Sorry, Rudy Giuliani made this up out of whole cloth. I paraphrase. And then they have to try and explain to Donald Trump the difference between real news and fake news, and I don't envy them.
Mr. President, the problem you have with social media, people can say anything.
No, this isn't social media. This is Trump media. It's not social media. It's really not. It's not social media. I don't care about social. But I couldn't care less. Social media is big tech.
You heard it here. Trump gets his facts from Trump media, not social media, and he couldn't care less about social media. It's just big tech. Go ahead and ban me, Twitter. I don't care. I'm not even mad. He's mad. And he's mad in the call, too, as we are about to hear.
And I hate to imagine what's going to happen on Monday or Tuesday but it's very scary to people, where the ballots flow in out of nowhere. It's very scary to people.
And now the threats begin. In case you have been wondering, this is what Georgia's Secretary of State had to say about all these election fraud allegations out of his own mouth.
Well, I've listened to what the president has just said. President Trump, we've had several lawsuits, and we've had to respond in court to the lawsuits and the contentions. We don't agree that you have one. I didn't agree about the 200,000 number that you'd mentioned, and I could go through that point by point. What we had done is we gave our state senate about 1.5 hours of our time going through the election issue by issue, and then on the state house, the government affairs committee, we gave them about 2.5 hours of our time, going back point by point on all the issues of contention. And then just a few days ago, we met with our U.S. congressman, Republican congressman, and we gave them about 2 hours of our time talking about this past election.
There you have it from Secretary Raffensperger himself. And again, he is a Republican who would have had every personal motivation to take an election from the Democrats. It's clear that he really dislikes people like Stacey Abrams, as shown on the Georgia Secretary of State's website, where they post press releases that directly trash her. But this guy is not about to involve himself in an election fraud scandal. Certainly not one spearheaded by Donald Trump. Even if Raffensperger wasn't honest, he would be smarter than that. You heard him say to Trump, look, we investigated every one of these allegations. We found no substantiation for them. We explained it point by point to the court. We explained it point by point to the state representatives. It's nonsense. Trump, as you would expect, does not accept that. He just continues to rattle on about how there are thousands and thousands of missing ballots. In Trump's narrative, any missing ballots would be votes for him, and any fraudulent ballots would be votes for Biden. So all that needs to be done is to find about 12,000 Trump votes.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state, and flipping the state is a great testament to our country, because, and there's just, it's a testament that they can admit to a mistake, or whatever you want to call it, if it was a mistake. I don't know. A lot of people think it wasn't a mistake. It was much more criminal than that.
And then here comes the part that's probably the most illegal on the part of Trump.
They're going around playing you and laughing at you behind your back, Brad. Whether you know it or not, they're laughing at you. And you've taken a state that's a Republican state, and you've made it almost impossible for a Republican to win because of cheating, because they cheated like nobody's ever cheated before. And I don't care how long it takes me. We're going to have other states coming forward pretty good. But I won't. This is never given. We have some incredible talent. Said they've never seen anything. Now, the problem is they need more time for the big numbers, but they are very substantial numbers. And I think you're going to find that they, by the way, a little information, I think you're going to find that they are shredding ballots because they have to get rid of the ballots because the ballots are unsigned. The ballots are corrupt. And they're brand new and they don't have seals. And there's a whole thing with the ballots, but the ballots are corrupt. And you're going to find that they are, which is totally illegal. It's more illegal for you than it is for them because you know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense. And you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk. But they are shredding ballots, in my opinion, based on what I've heard, and they are removing machinery, and they're moving it as fast as they can, both of which are criminal fines, and you can't let it happen, and you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. I don't know. Look, Brad, I have to find 12,000 votes, and I have them times a lot, and therefore I won the state. That's before we go to the next step, which is in the process of right now, And I watched you this morning, and you said, well, there was no criminality, but I mean, all of this stuff is very dangerous stuff. When you talk about no criminality, I think it's very dangerous. So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. We have that in spades already, or we can keep it going. But that's not fair to the voters of Georgia because they're going to see what happened.
In my opinion, based on what I've heard, they're shredding ballots. They're cheating like no one has ever cheated before. And if you let it happen, that's a crime, and it's a big risk for you. What Trump just said was that he is going to have his talented people find evidence that people were shredding ballots in Georgia, and they were moving machines, and the Secretary of State for Georgia and the state's lawyers knew or should have known, but they looked the other way. And once this evidence comes to light, they'll be in big trouble. That's essentially the threat that Trump made. And now what he is asking for in order to prevent that, I just want to find 11,000 ballots. Just admit you made a mistake. That's a real testament to the country that you can admit you made a mistake. I mean, I've never admitted a mistake, but I hear it's a nice thing to do. We'll just call it a mistake, even though a lot of people are saying it was a crime you guys did.
Why don't you want to find this, Ryan? What's wrong with you? I heard your lawyer is very difficult, actually, but I'm sure you're a good lawyer. You have a nice last name.
Weirdest statement in the whole phone call. You have a nice last name? What does that mean? At first I thought, is that some kind of Jew-related comment? Does the lawyer have a Jewish last name? And Trump is implying, like so many people do, that a Jewish last name is what you want in a lawyer? Hey, don't come at me. I don't make the rules. Jewish last name. Just saying. But the lawyer on the phone's last name is Germany, so what the hell does Trump mean by nice last name? You have a last name that's the same as the country famous for killing millions of Jews and other minorities. No offense, German listeners, I know it wasn't you. But I am scared by that statement. So will the state of Georgia prosecute Donald Trump for solicitation to commit election fraud? If you ask me, they definitely should. There are some lawyers who are saying, nah, you can't prove it, because there is not enough evidence that Trump had this state of mind where he intended to do this wrongful thing. And I say, poppycock, horse apples. Enough with all this ridiculous special treatment of the Trumps. It's like for the rest of us, the justice system presumes that we intended to do the things we did. And if we want to say otherwise, then the burden of proof is on us. But with the Trumps, well, Thomas Smith from Serious Inquiries Only put it really well. With the Trumps, it's like they can't be touched unless there's evidence, like a notarized statement that says, I solemnly swear I am up to no good, and then they could be nailed for state of mind. Come on. Trump isn't the president anymore. Prosecutors, I'm talking to you. You can get him like you got Manafort and Cohen and Stone. Do your damn job. You love to put people in prison. You live for it, don't lie. Prosecutors, send your complaints to @habeashumor on Twitter or put them in the YouTube comments. The people want justice, damn it, and entertainment. Because a Trump criminal trial will be the best television ever, and I will subscribe to whatever streaming service covers the whole thing, and I will hole up in my bedroom with a box of wine and a case of Hot Pockets, and that will be the last you see of me until the jury comes back with a verdict. So I am just on pins and needles waiting for Trump to be arrested. I know that the investigators are taking their time to make sure they have enough evidence, but I hope they are quick about it. I have been predicting for months, and I still predict, that Donald Trump will flee the United States, or at least try to if the heat gets turned up past a certain point. He probably would go to Russia if Putin allows him to. That's never guaranteed since Putin betrays people all the time, just like Donald Trump does. However, we know from the Edward Snowden incident that Putin will grant asylum to fugitives for no other reason than to cheese off the United States. So there's that. And the fact that the Trumps probably know too much to be left to their own devices. And I'm just going to end the speculation there because this could keep going into some dark places. You guys, wouldn't it be weird if Melania was a Russian agent this whole time? That would be so weird.
Audience participation, played along at home.
Last time I asked you to submit your concepts and business models for Ohio's burgeoning fetus embryo blastocyte zygote burial industry. The responses have been fantastic. I was hoping to get some ideas for aborted tissue cemetery names, since the best I could come up with was Requiem and Tampax. At Matthew Dill came up with this gem, Fetus Fields. Beautiful, simple, yet elegant. It's alliterative, it's kind of rhymey, and it just tees up the perfect advertising slogan. Get your fetus feels at Fetus Fields. Fetus Fields would be targeted to anyone seeking a burial plot for their own little ziggy, or just for people who want to visit. And people will visit, because aborted fetuses are like porn to some people. You know the people I'm talking about. They stand outside Planned Parenthood with graphic posters and barrels of fake fetal tissue. They are way too into it. Well, come on over to Fetus Fields and wallow to your heart's content. Pray, cry, spend all day doing anything but actually helping real children. And make sure to visit the gift shop where you can pick up souvenir postcards, keychains, refrigerator magnets, and don't forget to take home a case of our exclusive brand of canned spaghetti, Embryos, now with mystery meatballs. Thank you for that great suggestion, Aunt Matthew Dill. And speaking of delicious regional delicacies, for you party people, at Don Ford Voice proposes a full-on New Orleans-style funeral for your abortion. Marching band, dancing, beads for people who flash their genitals, double beads if you're menstruating, and the pièce de résistance. A king cake with not a fake plastic baby, but the actual fetus of honor. And if you get the piece with the baby, and I'll put baby in quotes because we associate babies with king cakes traditionally, but in this case it would be in no way an actual baby. If you get that piece, you get good luck until the next zygote in your family dies. More like Marty Gross, am I right? Thank you so much for those great suggestions at Don Ford Voice. And finally, from at Archer Eon, we get this very creative idea to use egg trays as coffins. That's actually a lot easier and less messy than aluminum soda cans. And you can cut the egg tray to size based on what stage the pregnancy was and how much gunk comes out. And there is a second part to this, which is that the aborted cells, embryos, whatever, should be named, and they should be named after Republican lawmakers. That is beautiful, and I say you would be remiss if you don't take a vivid color photo of little Mike DeWine or little Mitch McConnell or little Greg Abbott. Stick that thing on a greeting card and send it off to the namesake, preferably with a donation in their name to Planned Parenthood and a lovely handwritten message saying, "Thank you so very much for making this day possible. We couldn't have done it without you." Isn't the habeas humor audience just the best? Yeah, you are. Thank you so much for participating and for just listening. If you didn't participate, it is always your choice. This is a pro-choice show. For the next audience participation challenge, send in your guesses for what crime Donald Trump will be charged with first. And what should his sentence be if he is convicted? Post your responses on social media and hashtag it HHAP. I will choose my favorites and present them during the next show.
It's time to thank our awesome patrons. Without you, this show wouldn't make me so cool.
This show is made possible by the pledges of generous and wonderful people who contribute via Patreon and PayPal. When I was doing the show from the previous location, it would stream live on YouTube and only the patrons get the link to watch. Everyone else has to see it in reruns. I do want to try to return to that, but our internet here is so crap that I have not been able to work out the logistics yet. I might need to find a certain time of day when the traffic is low and the connection won't cut out. I will keep you posted. There are 2 new hobby humorist patrons to thank, Daniel and Scott. Your pledges are so very much appreciated. Thank you. To everyone listening or watching, your support in just listening or watching is super helpful and, of course, super fulfilling for me, since I make this show for other people to gain entertainment from. Every audio download and every view on YouTube helps grow the show. Every click on the subscribe and every click on the like button and every 5-star rating helps even more, because it means that those platforms will push this show out to more people. If you are privileged enough to be able to pledge $1 or so on Patreon and you would like to support me that way, I would be endlessly appreciative. Each and every dollar adds up, and each time there's a new $1 patron, it's like Christmas morning for me, even though I'm an atheist Jew. It's still magical because your dollar pledge is that meaningful to me. Speaking of which, the hero humorists pledging $5 per episode are Phil and It's-A-Me, and also Leona F., aka my mom. Thank you all so much. Your jarrones are being sent. Please make sure I have your current shipping address. Remember, everyone, that if you pledge $5 or more per episode, you will receive in the post one of these. This is a 2-ounce jar with the show logo on it. We call it the Jarrone. And I used to say it was great for bringing booze on airplanes, but don't go on airplanes. Stay home. Or at least stay home as much as you possibly can. Don't be an asshole. The Herculean humorists pledging $10 and up per show are Brian, B, and top patron Dane Griffith. All my gratitude and love to you as always. And to you Herculean humorists, both past and present, I'm trying to think of what I can provide you in lieu of doing a show together with you, since none of the Herculean humorists seem to be too keen on that. If you have a suggestion for a substitute reward for your top tier patronage, please write in and let me know. That applies to everyone who has ever been a $10 plus patron. Reach out if you have an idea. Keep it clean and keep it legal. Our website, habeashumor.com, is your one-stop shop for watching, listening, supporting, communicating, and sending your friends. Check it out and follow us on the social media. I'm even on TikTok now at Habeas Humor.
Trump going to prison.
Whoa! Longest for the longest time. Whoa! Longest for the longest. If we said goodbye to you tonight. right. What else would I do? I'm not inspired by you. Not gonna see you for a long time.
As always, do not take any legal advice from this show. It is for entertainment only. Do not make the mistake of thinking that you and I have some kind of client relationship, because that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. The attached notes contain links to the sources used in this episode, as well as how to find habeas humor all over the interwebs. Until next time, please continue to shelter in place and social distance, wear your PPE, get the vaccine if you can, and stay legal, my friends.